Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Maria Garcia. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. About a year ago, the city of El Paso underwent a big historic change, hiring its second ever city manager. The person in charge has implemented a vision for the city's future. And in the short year, he's already made significant changes. Of course, we're talking about City Manager Tommy Gonzalez joining us tonight. He came to El Paso at a time when the city is trying to figure out how to pay for massive investments, from the $500 million quality of life bond project to the evolving power of City Council. We have a lot to talk about tonight, and you can be part of the conversation. You can email us your questions now to ABC7extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1775, or you can tweet me at MariaGABC7. Before we get to the discussion, though, I explored what Gonzalez has already changed at City Hall, so take a look.
Just threw it down on him.
When you first talk to Tommy Gonzalez, he probably won't go into city business, but instead the youth basketball teams he coaches and his children.
I get carried away with my kids.
But once you ask him about running the city, he quickly gets back to business.
You can't improve something until you know what's wrong with a process.
A year ago, Gonzalez seemed like an unlikely choice to some. The former Irving, Texas city manager was in the headlines for accepting, some claimed soliciting, free tickets to sporting events. He left that post after the city council voted to end his automatic contract renewal. What trumped that, say El Paso city reps, is that Gonzalez is willing to stand up to them. They say he's a straight shooter, maybe too direct sometimes.
Even if it's an answer that he thinks I won't want, and I probably don't, he'll tell it like it is.
He doesn't hide anything. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. If anything at all you can accuse him of, he makes it sound a lot worse than it really is, and that's just to get everybody motivated, I think. He's like a football coach for us to get in there and really fight to get these taxes down.
That's fine, council, if that's what you want. You guys keep saying, I want this, this, and this. But remember, it's going to cost this, this, and this.
There's a consensus that Gonzalez is much more blunt with the council than Joyce Wilson was, telling them unambiguously their revenue isn't keeping up with expenses.
When you look at your revenue growth, it's 1.5%, I think, is what we're looking at, or what your history shows. So it's meager. Sometimes the truth hurts, and I don't try to be so direct so that you're not able to be diplomatic about how you deliver a message. But I do think it's important to be upfront with people, to tell them what the issues are, and then tell them what you're doing to address them.
And that no-nonsense approach has yielded major results, according to city reps. Gonzalez has restructured the city's top management, saving the city an estimated $3.5 million, he says.
He's showing us real results.
Results also evident in how the city does things. Gonzalez implemented a new business process called Lean Six Sigma. It works by having regular city employees analyze problems and find solutions, not top managers. Sometimes El Pasoans who use city services also help. The first victory? It used to take 3 weeks and $214 to get a permit to reserve a park. City employees and a taxpayer were able to cut it to half an hour and $13 by eliminating unnecessary steps and adding to the responsibilities of some employees.
And really, there was no rhyme and reason to some of the ways we did some of the things. We want to find better ways of delivering our services.
And the people delivering those services? About 6,000 city employees. Gonzalez has started a new program to recognize them.
I work in the city.
Yes, I know who you are.
Surprising them at their office.
And when we make improvements, I want those to be recognized as well.
Recognition that hasn't gone unnoticed. City employees I spoke with tell me Gonzalez is much more approachable than his predecessor.
The morale seems good.
I see an attitude change in the employees. I see an attitude change on city council.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
A city adjusting to a direct leader with a new way of doing things. Maria Garcia, ABC-7. And joining us now is City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Let's start with the quality of life bond.
Right.
There's this big concern that El Pasoans are maybe going to get watered-down versions of the signature project, things like the arena, the Children's Museum, if the city waits to build these projects and doesn't break ground soon. more time means higher costs, less bang for our buck. How do you quell those concerns?
Well, I think that that's the reason why the council was looking for someone who had some experience in city management. It's been very helpful to come in and really work on the budget and reduce our costs, because it'll alleviate some of the increases that we'll have to look at and the investment that we're making into our quality of life projects. So in some instances, when we were looking at 5 cents last year, we're able to reduce that to 2 cents and not have such a big burden on the taxpayer. So when you look at that and look at how do you attack the capital projects, you have to look at the budget first. And how can you streamline so that can put you in a better position to pay for those projects?
Now, you are looking for sites for the arena downtown already.
Yes, we are. It's a great question. And the sites that we're looking at, there's 2 or 3 sites that we're studying, and that's something that we're going to be presenting to council this week. And
this week.
So in answer to your question about projects being impacted or how do you look at completing those, we put together some reports for council that they hadn't had in the past to really put things in front of the public. A lot of folks talk about transparency and sharing information with the public. It's a far different thing to actually do it. And we put together a quarterly capital projects report that's been published. We're going to publish the second quarter, and then we're going to have a final quarter. Usually we have 3 quarters and then the final report, but we're allowing staff to put the report together and have more information in there in 2 reports and then having 1 at the end. That report that we presented to council represented that we had 23 projects completed, 20 of which were under budget, and 3 were over budget. And when you look at the 3 that were over budget, collectively they were over budget by $100,000. The 20 that were under budget, it was about $2.3 million. So the net savings is $2.2 million. So I don't think that the community is getting watered down versions of anything. If anything, the projects that we bring forward to the council and present those, they have more information in front of them so they can make those decisions on what changes they want in those projects.
And these 23 projects that you're referring to, it includes the quality of life bond projects plus
Yes,
any
it does.
other major construction project that the city's, any capital project that the city's working
It does, and it represents quality of life, street projects, and also community development projects. We group them all together.
Okay, now that leads exactly to my next question. I was going to say, you know, the city does say the majority of the quality of life bond projects completed so far or in construction so far are under budget. But these are generally smaller scale neighborhood projects.
Right, that's correct.
We haven't got into the big projects. Some of the big projects like the West Side Pool was projected to be under budget by about $4 million. You've said that will probably happen again, that some of these big projects were probably, the cost was probably underestimated. That's a little bit concerning to taxpayers. Right.
With that particular project, I think that the information that was put out in 2012, some of it said that it was a competitive pool, while others talked about 25 meter in size. So there was conflicting information. And so when we went out and talked to the neighborhood and talked to the public in that particular district, they were convinced that it was a 50 meter pool. And so the difference between a 25 meter and a 50 meter pool, indoor pools, is about that $4.5–5 million difference. And so we were giving the people what they felt like they had voted to receive, and so that's why we're doing that. And that particular district gave up 2 other projects, so really it's not over budget if you take that into consideration. And so if it's over budget by another different sum, the $2.2 million that we referred to that we're saving on the other projects, in the grand scheme of things, can absorb that increase. Do you think that this will happen on other projects, though, other big projects? I think there's a possibility that it could, and I think that's the reason why it's important that what I said earlier about the budget and how we can streamline our efforts. And in this year's budget already, we've been able to save with last year's budget $2.5 million and the current budget another $1 million. And the first quarter report, we were able to show savings, and then in the second quarter that we're going to present this next week, we're showing almost $1 million in savings. Okay, I want to talk a little bit dollars and cents here. There's a lot of investment, a lot of growth in El Paso. Aside from the quality of life bond projects, there's always a request from a city rep, right? Sure. And your staff recently proposed adding aquatic facilities, splash parks to different parts of the city. But when you look at the city's pocketbook, I mean, it's pretty limited. If you combine the property taxes of every single
single person who owns a home in the city of El Paso, what they pay for taxes to the city of El Paso. Property taxes don't even pay for fire and police.
Right.
You know, then you get into sales taxes, and once you finish paying for fire and police, what's left of the city budget is pretty small. Yet the needs keep growing. So there's this concern. How do we pay for all this growth when the city's revenue, you've said, is pretty meager? A 1.5% on average a year.
No, you're right. The revenues are trending flat, and the expenditures continue to go up. And that's the reason why it's not enough to just look at our operations and how you can streamline those operations and become more efficient. You have to look at how can you draw other projects into this community. And you mentioned the arena, and that's part of what the public sector would pay for, the $180 million for that project. But you also have to look at other projects that would bring more sales tax to El Paso. We've talked before about Bass Pro Shops, Top Golf, Great Wolf Lodge, which is a resort, an indoor-outdoor aquatics facility. Those type of things would make this more of a true hub, where you go deeper into Mexico. They could come and visit El Paso, and you could also draw from deeper into New Mexico, like Albuquerque, with something like that type of attraction, like a Great Wolf Lodge attraction. So we were looking at some of those bigger projects as well that are private sector driven that would bring more people into our community to spend more sales tax dollars.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about San Jacinto, one of the quality of life bond projects. The city at this point won't even give an estimated date of completion. The chair of the Bond Oversight Advisory Committee, the man in charge of overseeing that these projects are implemented the way voters approved them, says that he can't even get a straight answer from the city about why it's delayed. That's a little concerning, you know, that even the chair of the BOAC, of the Bond Oversight Advisory Committee, says, I can't even get a straight answer. Why this thing is so delayed? What's happening with San Jacinto Plaza?
You know, having this be my 5th city managing, I know that there's a difference in El Paso and other cities, and that there's a hypersensitivity on the focus on capital projects like no other city I've been at. And they frequently ask, the public asks our staff in public, you know, when is this going to be complete, whatever project we're talking about. And our staff is quick to give them an answer. And I firmly believe they're too quick sometimes in responding. And I've talked to them about, look, we have to have a real date that we can live by and actually execute. I can't speak to how this contract was awarded because I wasn't here. But what I can speak to are the things we've put together and how we're addressing the projects going forward. And I think the systems and processes that we have put in place are adding value to the good work that already had been done here. So that's what we're trying to do, add value to those good works that have been done in the past. But with respect to that project, it's in liquidated damages right now. So it's being fined daily because it's late. And the reason why a date hasn't been given is because we don't feel comfortable with what date it will be complete at this point. So we're working closely with the contractor through the legal department and their legal staff on the contractor side. And we know that the cabling has been received by the contractor, and that was one of the biggest things that was being held up for the project. And the cabling is for the Plaza Pavilion that goes into that particular site.
The canopy.
The canopy.
On top of the...
That's exactly right.
The Lagarto statue.
Exactly. So that cabling was a big piece of it being impacted in terms of timing. And so at this particular time, we're waiting to receive that. Once we get that and get a better idea from the contractor, we will be able to share a date. But at this point, we're somewhat cautious about that because the dates that we've been given, we haven't been able to see that come to fruition.
I mean, the city, with, you know, in a partnership with the private sector, built a state-of-the-art ballpark in a year. You know what I mean? So surely, like, people, and it's downtown, and people walk by downtown, they look at San Jacinto Plaza and think, well, I don't get it. They built that, you know, the Chihuahua Stadium in a year, but San Jacinto Plaza is still dragging on. I mean, surely you can see the dichotomy there.
Well, and I also think that when you have projects that you're wanting to keep within budget, you have to consider that as well with regard to timing. I can just tell you that the projects that we've inherited that are in process right now, we're putting good systems in place that are addressing whether it's late or whether they're not complying with the different objectives in the contract. But I can also say that of the 23 projects that I mentioned, 20 are under budget and we're completed on time. So 87% completion rate. We're trying to increase that number to try to get into the 90% completion, and I think that the citizens deserve that. And that's why we put that report together, so that they can see that we're actually paying attention. And this particular project, the fact that this one and Baron Park, that's also late, that we have placed liquidated damages in place for this one in particular, shows that we're holding the private sector accountable in this particular instance. And we're also looking at our process to make sure that if we did something, that we make sure that we correct those going forward.
Okay, we have an email from Roscoe in the Lower Valley. He says, I'm very suspect of a person who made nearly $500,000 in their last city manager's job, and in El Paso they make less than half that. I have also heard rumors that Mr. Gonzalez's family is no longer living here. Do you plan to remain for the full duration of your contract? All of these reasons I listed make that highly unlikely, in my opinion. And that's from Roscoe in the Lower Valley. And your family is actually here. Yeah. They're here in the studio. Do you want to address that?
Well, I don't think my family has anything to do with my job.
Well,
as you noted, they're here.
Right.
And they go to school here in El Paso.
He's just concerned that the question is, will you remain for the duration of your contract in El Paso?
I think that I took this job because I miss city management. I was in the private sector, and I really like it here. And I think that it's a challenge, and that's what I was looking for, was a challenge. And we're going to be here as long as we're happy, and right now we're happy.
Okay. All right. So that's not. I'm trying to figure out. I have to ask the follow-up question.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a committed yes. I'm here until the end of my contract.
Well, that's my goal, to complete the contract.
Okay. All right. We have to take a break. When we come back, we're sitting down with City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. You can call us at 496-1775 or tweet me at Maria G ABC-7. You can also email us at ABC7Xtra@KVIA.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're sitting down today with City Manager Tommy Gonzalez. So I want to talk a little bit about the connection to the city of El Paso from citizens. You came at a time when the city was just getting through a very contentious period over the direction of El Paso, and it all seemed to center around the ballpark and the quality of life bond and growth. You had people who were passionately rallying around these projects, and you had people who were deeply divided about it, who deeply questioned it. And I think the ballpark process in particular created really a resounding distrust in the city. And it appears as though the city is just getting over that hump, but with the delay in San Jacinto Plaza and learning that the city has had to subsidize the ballpark because the finances just didn't turn out exactly the way the city thought, are you concerned for morale or that distrust may come back?
Well, I think if anything, it's building strong trust to have these reports that I mentioned before that we're putting before the public and putting before the city council, so that they know what's getting done and what's not getting done on time. And the fact that we're working with the contractors to hold them accountable and be held accountable as well through these reports that we have to the public. So I think that's building that bridge for that trust. To show that we want to create these opportunities for results. With respect to morale in general at the city, with regard to the staff, I think that we've put good programs in place, like the on-the-spot programs, You Matter programs, where if our employees do something really well and they're caught exercising the mission statement, which is delivering outstanding services, and somebody points that out to us, we give them a gift card and recognize them for that. So I think doing things like that is very helpful. We've also put a program in place that we did in the last city I managed that in the last place saved us $26 million in our healthcare program. The fact that our healthcare costs are climbing, that is something that we have to address, and it just can't be addressed by increasing the fees to our staff, just continuing to do that, and that's what's been happening. And so what we did this year, and what we're going to put in place come at the first of the fiscal year, is we put in a program that if you have a certain grade in these 6 physical tests, you can earn up to $150 per month.
Yeah.
We think that'll save money for the city, and it'll put money in the pocket of our employees, which I think is a great motivator.
Speaking of health care costs, the city recently lost when it came to how much firefighters should get paid and how much they should pay for their health insurance. One of the points you made throughout this process was that health care costs are just rising across the country. That's one of the biggest really challenges faced by many cities. Why do you think your message just did not resonate with voters?
Well, first of all, I don't see that as a loss. I mean, I think that that's the democratic process that you have in local government. And we were for our firefighters, and we still are. And we're as one team. I mean, the council, directed us in executive session in those negotiations, and then the mayor even spoke to them. So, I mean, they just didn't agree with what was offered, in the end. So they took that to the voters. We felt like we put a very aggressive proposal in place that not only addressed wages, but also addressed health care through this wellness initiative that I just mentioned that we're going to do with the rest of our employees. But they decided to go to the voters in the end, and that's the process. And the fact that the voters voted in favor of that, that will cause an increase in taxes that the voters said they wanted. So I think that we will honor that and make sure that that democratic process works the way it's supposed to.
Okay. We have a phone call from Norma in the Lower Valley. Hi, Norma. What's your comment or your question?
Yes, my question is, what happened to the library on Carolina and Alameda? A land was allocated, but the project is not there anymore, and it's a 2-year project. Thank you.
Okay, so she's talking about a project on Carolina and Alameda, that it was a 2-year project, the land was allocated, but it's not happening anymore.
The first 3-year rollout program had X amount of dollars that was set out in order to either purchase land or start projects. And so the next 3-year rollout program is going to be presented to council. So that may have been one of the projects where only the land was acquired, and then you go forward with the next phase once the council approves.
And you're talking about the quality of life
bond,
3-year rollout.
Yeah, exactly.
And the first 3-year rollout ends at the end of this year.
That's correct.
Right.
And
okay.
I think that's the reason why we've started this capital project report, and it's on our website. So I would encourage the citizen who called to get on the website and also look at the report so that she can see which projects are in line for the first 3 years and which ones are going to be in line for the next 3 years. That was also a part of what was put out in 2012, and I think that part of these reports that we're putting out, we want to make sure the public understands that it's not all happening in the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, this is a 10 to 12-year rollout, and in some cases, depending on how you want to look at the cost that you'll have to absorb, it might be longer. And that's one of the things we talked to council about in the summer, this last summer that I was here. Told them that depending on how much taxes that you want to absorb, you have to look at how you roll out that program, whether it's a 10, 12, or 15-year rollout.
Okay, let's go to Richard in Central on the phone. Also, Richard, what's your comment or your question?
Yes, with all those multi-million-dollar projects that we have going on in our city, and highways and buildings and remodeling parks and everything else, what are we doing to bring more flights to El Paso and make them competitive? I'm hearing that a lot of flights have been canceled. We can't get anybody straight into El Paso, no direct flights. You have to either go to Dallas, Phoenix, and it is really turning to be a chaotic situation. Thank you.
I think that's an excellent question, and that's the reason why earlier in the comments that I made about how we just can't focus on the operations of the city and the streamlining and being efficient. You have to look at also the big picture. What can you do to draw more things into El Paso that are going to cause more people to get on the plane to want to come here? And that's why I mentioned I mentioned the resort and some of the retail. And obviously there's a big push for more jobs and how we work with Borderplex to make that happen. So I think in combination with all of those different things and then stronger incentives that were passed by the council for the airline so that we can have more direct flights are things that we have been working on. I think we've had some success with.
So how does the council then tackle that issue? I mean, obviously the airport is a more autonomous department within the city of El Paso, but still, how do you work with airlines? How do you entice them to bring more direct flights to the city?
We have a more aggressive incentive program for the airlines where we give more incentives out in marketing and a direct incentive to them to have a direct flight. And we're working with them right now, and we also had an incentive program that the council passed a few months ago. So that's how the council is involved. That in order to get more aggressive, they needed to pass that resolution. They did. We're using that in order to attempt to increase the direct flights with those airlines.
Okay, let's go to Luisa on the east side. Luisa, what's your comment or your question?
Yes, I'd like to know what you're doing for the employees, and as far as the raises, what are you doing to look at this and let us know what you have planned?
Thank you very much. And that was Luisa asking what you're doing for city employees in terms of pay and raises. One of the issues that came up during the firefighters discussion leading up to the election was how much civilian employees were getting paid, you know, how many of them had not received raises in quite some time, and they paid also the same as police when it came to the health insurance rates. So how can you answer Luisa's question?
I think it's an excellent question, and that was one of the questions I asked when I first arrived, is when was the last time the employees received a raise? And I was appointed to what they call compression pay here, and that's market pay, where they had 3 phases of it, and this last year we implemented another phase of it, so that gave increases for people who weren't at market. And the other thing I mentioned was the wellness initiative, the health program that can give employees up to $150 per month, but it can also help the organization's healthcare costs. So I think that is a responsible way to create incentives for the employees to receive more in pay as far as if they take care of themselves, and then with that can also decrease our healthcare costs. So I think the citizen wins, I think the employee wins. I also mentioned the You Matter program. When our employees do something great, we give them incentives, we give them gift cards and things of that nature. And we also have a Lean Six Sigma program. The people who participate in that, they all get $100 when they complete the program. And I know we had 2 projects that were very successful that really showed amazing results to the council and to the public.
And we showed the Lean Six Sigma program in the opening piece here on ABC.
Right, you did. And those 3 things did not exist. And so we believe we're putting smart programs in place that really pay attention to the needs of our employees, but also speaks to better customer service. That if our employees are more motivated, they're healthier, they're going to go out and produce better results, and we want them to be recognized for that. But we also want to be responsible with citizens' funds and make sure that they see that we're trying to put more dollars in our employees' pocket, but we're also saying that by them getting in better shape, that will help our healthcare costs in the long run.
Okay, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the charter election that the City Council is considering. It's considering redefining the power of the mayor. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to take more of your phone calls and emails, so stay with us. Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. We have City Manager Tommy Gonzalez with us today. I want to ask you about City Council's role, specifically the mayor's role. The City Council is considering a city charter election that could possibly redefine the power and responsibility of the mayor's office, specifically having him vote more, but maybe taking away his power to veto things. Mayor Oscar Leeser this week said that would make his office essentially useless. He says that the mayor's office is already a weak office with not a lot of responsibilities. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think that the discussion was supposed to just be centered on how we can be more efficient, because I feel like we need to be out there working more than meeting so often. I think that we're working on reducing the permit times. As you mentioned in the story, our permit times have gone down dramatically in parks, and we're looking at how we can do more pothole repairs through that Lean Six Sigma program. We want to do more of those kinds of things. Better management of our capital projects, the quality of life that you asked me about. I mean, we're going to get really busy with the arena process, so we want more time in that. With respect to what the discussion kind of led to, I think it was just the mayor and council talking about the voting on every issue. I think when you just look at the way this charter is written compared to every other city in the state of Texas, it probably has 3 or 4 more additional powers or responsibilities than any other city does except for Houston. So I think it already has more than most cities, than every city other than Houston. So I don't really understand what the discussion is about.
Okay, all right. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out if you answered my question.
Okay.
Do you agree that with Mayor Oscar Leeser's assessment that the mayor's office in El Paso is weak?
Well, I believe that the way the charter is written here in El Paso, that the position has more responsibility than most any other city other than Houston.
Okay, all right. Let's go to James in the Northeast. James, what's your comment or your question?
Yes, hi, my name is James from Northeast. And I was just trying to find out, what is it that, the city's looking at doing? They talked about the North Park site for the new apartment complex, and then they did away with the water park out here. They're only going to put a splash pad. What is going to happen with the citizens of Northeast as far as, different things that can come out here to benefit us as well? Thank you.
Okay. And we hear this from Northeast residents for some time now. They say, we have to go to other parts of town to shop, to play, to hang out. Why can't we have amenities in the Northeast? Obviously, Northgate is already in the works. Can you answer his question?
Well, I think Northgate, as you said, is in the works, and that's a big project. And we put out major incentives, and that got completed this, I guess, early fall. And I know that was a big project for the Northeast. So that is well underway, and I think that's a huge commitment. The splash pad that he referred to, we actually put that one at the top of the list, and that's going to be the first one. That wasn't in place of a big water park by any stretch of the imagination. I think what happened with the water park itself, that was something that was put out there too quickly, and the response that we got back, it was not something that we would want to put in front of the public in any part of the city. They wanted way too many incentives. They wanted the city basically to pay for everything and then reap all the benefits. They had no skin in the game, that particular proposal that we received. And that really isn't good whenever you put all the public money into it and you have no private sector investment. So I think it was a smart move not to go forward with it, just simply because it's something that's being asked for. We want to make sure we put the best foot forward and give people the best product possible.
Okay, and we're out of time, but I want to make sure I get to Luis's question. 2 questions. Could the city manager please provide a date on when the streetcar construction will commence? Will the city refurbish the old PCC streetcars? And that's from Luis.
I can answer the second one. That is part of what the RMA is looking at, to refurbish the older vehicles.
The Regional Mobility Authority?
Yeah. And so the Regional Mobility Authority has a schedule that they're going to put out, and so we can put that out on our website. But they're the ones managing the project, and I would hate to throw out a date that might change. So what we'll do is we'll get that answer to you, and you can put it out on your website, and we'll put it on ours as well.
I think what was a little confusing is a couple of years ago, City Council voted to restore the old PCC streetcars, but then a few weeks ago there was a discussion on City Council about buying new ones or refurbishing this.
Yeah, I think it was several. Yeah, I think it was several months ago, right? And it was the discussion exactly about would it be less expensive to perhaps buy new ones, because the replacement parts long term, could you replace those? And I think after doing some research that the RMA did, the older vehicles and refurbishing those, a lot of the inner guts of the system or of the car would be similar, because they're older type vehicles. Even if you had the new shell, a lot of the older kind of parts would be used anyway. So there's more to come on that particular project.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you so much, City Manager Tommy
welcome.
Gonzalez, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Your 2 little boys are here, probably bored to death, so we'll let them go to bed now. Thank you so much for watching ABC 7 Extra. We hope you found this informative and helpful, and we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.